What is up, everyone? Hope you're all doing well today. This is Ete. As you can see, if you're tuning in on YouTube, I am all by myself today. This is going to be our Season 2 recap. We did a few less episodes in Season 2 than 1 because, I don't know, we just making things up as we go, and we just feel like we'll make them a little bit shorter seasons, action-pack them a little more. So you're here with me today. Sorry, I don't have any guests with me. But what I want to do in this episode is I want to just take a few minutes and I want to kind of give a best of, in a sense. I want to go through, talk about our Season 2 guests and share the big takeaways, the moments, the things that could be helpful that I know were meaningful to me. Now this is hard because I have a few notes this time. I didn't in Season 1. I'm going to wing it a little bit, but it's hard too because each one, all the hour that I spend with each entrepreneur is very meaningful to me, and I really appreciate them and their time. And so it's hard to take all that for each one and condense it down to a few seconds or a minute or two. So I want to apologize in advance for all of my Season 2 guests if I miss out a key thing. Forgive me. There was just so much good content that it was hard for me. But before I jump in, I want to say thank you to all the guests on the first 2 seasons, but especially since this Season 2 recap. I want to thank you guys for coming in and taking the time with me. Again, I just really value the time that I get to spend with you. It means a lot to me. I kind of replay the memories in my head even weeks, months later because I just really enjoy the time, the relationships, the connection. And so thank you guys. And this was an exciting season for me because I had some guests on. Many of them were ones that I had wanted to do before I even had an idea for the show. I wanted to have certain guests, and it just panned out after 6 or 7 months of begging them to come on. They came on. So it was a great one. And also I want to just let you know we actually are expanding. We get these reports, and so we do have listeners in Canada, France, Sweden, Australia, and now Kenya. So I didn't know they spoke English in Kenya, but welcome and glad you guys are tuning in. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in here. So my first episode was with Rusty Fife of Built Medical, and Rusty was a good friend of my wife growing up. They grew up in Orange County together, and now he moved to Arizona. He's got 3 kids, and I first met him when he came to visit us in Philly when we were living back in Jersey. And he's just got a heart of gold. He's such a good guy, and you can sense it. And that's one of the things I actually just love about my time with Rusty is his goodness, his caring for people, for what he's doing. It just pours out, and it really carries him in business. So that's one of the first lessons I loved from Rusty. The other ones are, out of everyone, I think he talked the most about sacrifice and determination. Rusty is building this company, and he's got a partner, I think maybe 2. And he's the sales guy. He's got to get the work. And so he has literally gotten a van, and he drives around the country, taking a lot of time away from his kids, away from the comforts of his home down in Arizona. And he is cold calling. He is, doing anything to bring work in for the family to grow the business. And he talks a lot about the sacrifice that he had to give up. Every day, he's out there and he's got to make a choice. Am I going to get up today and try to get some work and feed my family, grow my business? Or am I going to just hang out? And that's a daily decision that he has to make, and even he mentioned, I don't remember how he said it, but he said he went from low scale to mid scale hotels, or no, maybe $50 night hotels to $70 night hotels. So he's not living large and having gourmet meals every night, but he's determined and he's just sacrificed so much to bring out, grow the company. I loved his energy. He had such a positivity, and to me, it filled hope. It felt like a lot of hope involved. He has hope that this is going to grow, and there will be a time, and I think it's already beginning, where he doesn't have to be gone as much. And so those are some of my big takeaways with Rusty. My next interview was with Megan Perry of Trail Talk, and I said this during the episode. She's my therapist. She's been my therapist for years since I moved to Utah. So I don't know how often you get to interview your therapist and hand the mic over, and now I get to ask her whatever I want. So that was really fun. We met. It was obviously peak COVID time, and so we had to do the interview outside, very well distanced, sterilizing equipment and stuff. So I remember it was hot outside, and I had a chance to sit down with Megan. Some of the things, and she's from Jersey, right by me, so there's that too. But there's a couple of things that I loved about him. One was she's just an expert in her field. She knows her field. She's an amazing therapist. She studied it for years. She lives it, she practices it. And she's honest with what she struggles with. But I love this idea of just being an expert and continually reading. She's always looking for new books, podcasts on things to become better. Another thing I learned about with Megan is she was able to, and I don't know why I took this away, but I kind of took away that she understands and she can identify her own weaknesses. And she pointed a couple of them out during the episode, but just, some of the things that she's not great at in business, the managing or the disciplinary side, the team, the sales side. It's not her natural strengths, but she can identify them and she's working on them and building a system to be successful. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate when you can identify your weaknesses and put them on a list to improve who you are. She talked a lot about surrounding yourself with the right people. When she was living in Baltimore, she's from Jersey, was in Baltimore with her husband. They took a risk flying all the way to Park City, Utah to meet Allison, who was the founder of the company. And just a risk. And once she met Allison, she felt like this is the right person I need to be around. And she said it's good to be around people who inspire and challenge you. And so I really believe in that message to go ahead and put yourself around really good people who are going to lift you up, not people who are going to bring you down and crush your dreams, but be helpful. And so it was a wonderful interview. And so that was with Megan Perry of Trail Talk. My next interview was with Dave Zimmerman of Noisebox Studio, which is a recording studio that I've spent many years down at in Provo. And he's moved from one studio to another studio. Now he's got this amazing studio. He is booked out forever. I mean, I haven't even been to him for the last album because I can't get in and I don't have the patience to wait a few months. And so I wanted to know why. Dave, why are you so booked? Why are people coming to you? And his rates are higher than most small studios. They're I don't remember where he's at, 80, 90, $100 an hour, somewhere around there. And so we talked a lot about that. Well, how are you booked out and you have higher rates? Like, what's the secret? That's what everybody wants, right? And so here's some of the things that Dave shared with me. And one of them I actually learned, he didn't share this during the episode, but before the episode, I was helping a young band in town, and they wanted to film a live video, live music video for, Corona. It was going to be a concert. And I called up Dave because I've had a relationship with him. I said, Dave, here's what we want to do. I said, here's the catch. We do have a budget. Like, the kids only have so much money. It's got to be this, and they want this. And I remember when Dave, again, I've been a client for years, and we're friends, and he turned me down. He said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I said, what? But he did the right thing because Dave knows who his target client is, and he doesn't go outside of that. And this is what he said. He says, I'd love to help you. Obviously, I'd love to help the kids. But under that budget, I can't give you the quality that I put my name on. And so therefore, if you come and film it at a low budget and it was recorded at my studio, it doesn't match my branding. It doesn't match my image. And so I love that he was willing to walk away from a buck. He was willing to put the integrity and stay true to the branding above all things. And I thought that was a really powerful lesson that he taught me in real time. So thank you, Dave, for rejecting me and this band, but it taught me a lot. Another couple things I want to share about Dave is Dave spends a lot of time reinvesting in his business. He's a studio engineer, and I know a lot of engineers, a lot of studios. He puts a lot of money into updates for plugins, new gear. I've never seen someone constantly getting new gear. And we talked about that. He doesn't just get it because a lot of guys collect old gear. They'll get all analog gear, try to, just create this cool studio environment. But he looks at, with everything he's going to purchase for the business, he asks himself, how does this help my company, my clients? If I buy this plugin or this processor, compressor, how does it benefit my clients? And if it does, then he does it. But I love that he's reinvesting in his time. He spends a lot of time studying. So it makes him an expert. He is the fastest engineer. So back to the question, how does he charge, $90, $100 an hour and he's booked out for months? It's because he's so good at what he does at his craft that it might look like more expensive an hour, but he can get done in an hour more than most other studios can. And so, again, just being the expert and being amazing at it. So thank you, Dave. After that, I had my interview with Audrey Watkins of Elevate Nutrition and Fitness. She's one of my favorites. And, she shared the story of when she was working in Salt Lake and someone walked in and opened gunfire on her floor. And the target was a blonde woman. And there was only 2 blonde women on the floor. It was her and her friend. And her friend was shot down. And she talked about walking through that, and then her husband had the bad accident. And so I liked Audrey because she really pushed on this faith of, Audrey, after the interview I found out, she's an open Catholic, and she loves God. And that has really carried her through those traumatic moments into creating something important. Her business is all focused on relationships and clients. And I love that she is so authentic and genuine that you sense it. I was a client of hers, and I I just felt, I could feel like this woman cares. I'm not a number. I'm not a statistic to her. I'm not a dollar sign. I'm a person, and she knows that, and she built her company around people. So I think that's a really valuable lesson is do it for the people. Don't do it for yourself. My interview with Brett Lee. Brett's a good friend of mine, and he's a kind of a serial entrepreneur. He's been involved with so many projects overseas. He loves overseas business. But the two things that really jumped out at me were he shared the story of buying property, real estate in Arizona, and then at the right before the '08 recession, and then following a real estate career. So within a short matter of time, his house loses all its value, and his career's kind of going in the wrong direction. And he comes to a decision. His parents call him and say, hey, come back to Utah. We'll take care of you. Get back on your feet, that kind of thing. Or he had this crazy idea. I could pack up my 4 kids and my wife and move to China, Shanghai. And he had been there once for a few months. And Brett decided to go to China. But that's what I like about Brett. He loves adventure. Because he loves people. He loves culture. And he'll take risks. And he'll bring his family in too. It's not just... it's almost like a family business. They don't do anything for the business, but they're always part of it. He's trying to create an experience for his family. And I just like that. But he shared about how he made that decision. Because I said, well, why would you? That decision makes no sense on paper, Brett. That's like insane. And he talks about as he was working through it, he had a clarity. He said, I never knew anything so clearly in my life. And so I love that he was able to listen inside and follow when you're faced with a big decision. He didn't just look at logic. Obviously, that's a big part of it. But he also had feelings. He had intuition. He had insight that came inside. And he followed that. And it really turned out to be a blessing for his family. And I love, Brett has the hardest work ethic of anyone I know. He works through the night because he does business in different countries. So he's up, dealing with India, dealing with China, all different time zones. And lastly, he did talk about his wife, Meredith, what a support she is. And working together with her. And I think that's a really valuable lesson. My next interview was Allison Page, who is the founder of Trail Talk. Allison, I wanted to interview her from day one because I think Trail Talk is a brilliant concept, is taking therapy off the couches, out of this formality, and take it on the trails, hiking, side-by-side therapy with a professional counselor. Allison was fun. She's a dreamer. She's a visionary, which came across, sometimes way up here, and I feel that way too, so I could connect. She talked a lot about building her team, her IP, intellectual property, lawyer, her partners, she calls them trailhead owner or trailheads, and just building the right team, getting the right people in the places, and then letting them flourish, building a system that allows them to flourish. And her goal is to franchise so that she can kind of step out and not so much be a therapist. I think she'll always want to be a therapist because she loves it, but really work on this system and help others grow their system. One of the things I loved about Allison, she's very creative, she's very fun, and she's all in. She is, as she said in the interview, she can't not talk about Trail Talk. She'll be on the park, she'll be on the trails. Hey, have you heard of this great company that does it? She just loves it. And so she is the biggest advocate of Trail Talk, besides me. I love Trail Talk. And so her passion comes through, and her dedication to the idea comes through. So I love those couple things. I had an interview with Howard Matson, who is actually back east in Jersey, where I'm from, same area, but he was visiting Park City at the Montage with his wife, and I asked him to come down. We did an interview. It was one of my favorites. A lot there that I didn't know, but one of the things that really jumped out was Howard was in a bad accident, ended up in a coma, just really, really a bad situation, ended up getting a settlement as a young age. I think he was 17 or 18. He takes all that money, which is mature for a kid, and he finds a place to invest it. He finds a financial investment company, and he goes to the CEO and he says, "Hey, what do you do? How does this work?" And he asked so many questions, and he was so intrigued. And I think the CEO eventually, "Hey, why don't you come work for me?" So within 6 years, Howard was like one of the top performers of this company, and he's a young guy. Anyway, it gets to a point where Howard finds his faith, and he joins a church. And after some time, the CEO goes, "Look, this isn't working out," because it was a different church than he had. And he said, "We're going to need to part ways, or you're going to need to kind of cut out of that church and, join the right one." That's a whole other discussion we're not going to talk about. But Howard decides to stand by what he believes is right. He ends up walking from the company, losing, his time, his years, and his investment. Big decision, and it was really amazing to hear him share how he walked through that. But what was even crazier is as he left it, and he's still a young kid, I think in his 20s, a lot of the staff went with him. And that just shows the power of integrity. That shows the power of really sticking to what you believe in and not settling. A couple other things I loved about Howard was he is all about the customers. Every customer is a unique experience, and he tailors it. He listens. He cares about them. And he's a big student of business. I didn't know that. He reads business books. He digests them. I mean, we're talking, he said sometimes in a week he'll eat a whole book up. He's always studying business, and that's how he's got a head up. And the last thing I like about Howard is he has Fridays off. He built a system to be with his kids, and he has found a way to have a lot of success. I could brag on Howard. He didn't do it, but Howard's done really well. We'll just leave it at that because he's humble too. I don't want to embarrass him. He's got a lot of success, but his Fridays are off. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to be with his family and his kids. And I love that because that teaches other and the kids that they are more important than this company, than making more money, than a bigger house. And so really powerful. My interview with John Perry from Greene County FERT, BioGreen, and Lawncology. John's a blast. He's a crazy guy, so I really enjoy him. Since then, we've been talking quite about music. I'm going to go help his band. They're going to go back in the studio and asked me to come and, maybe sit in, being a little small producer, in that way. So it's been fun making that connection. But John always wanted to be a franchisor. He always had a big vision from day one. And I don't think I've interviewed out of the 30-something interviews anyone else who had that vision. That's the vision he had, and that's what he ended up with. We talked about he's got over 80-something BioGreen franchises, and they started growing so much, or licensees, that he built a manufacturing plant to create fertilizer. He's got a huge plant. I think he's got another one down in Orlando, a smaller one. And then he became a teacher, and he started something called Lawncology, which teaches you lawn care for companies, and he travels, he does seminars. And so I love that part. I love the piece that he is now a teacher. He gets paid. He built himself a platform where he could teach and guide and give information out to create money, to create revenue. One of the things he said at the end, I said, John, what's a big takeaway? He says, I don't remember exactly how he said it, but he said, get a helmet because you're going to fall down. You will fail. So don't worry about failing. Don't try to prevent it. In fact, that's when he said, get a helmet. Just plan on it. And when you do, it's not a big deal because you already know, I'm going to fail probably 50 times before this business gets up. So that was a good time with John Perry. After John, I had an interview with Tom Stone. Tom Stone was the mortgage guy here in town. He's amazing at it, but he's also a commercial real estate, and he's been buying buildings and has his own side thing, business, I shouldn't say side thing, has his own business on that side as well. But one of the big things there's a couple things, but one of them with Tom is Tom is a teacher, and so I actually found out about him because if you Google anything about mortgages, you have any questions, he'll have a million videos, which I believe he actually filmed some of them right here with the same company. But Tom spends a lot of time building content and teaching and giving away free information, building value. And I like that way of doing it. Some people say, oh, don't do that. People should have to pay a subscription for that. But the idea is you let people really connect with you, become an authority, and then when they need something, they'll come to you. And I really believe in that model, that way of business. And I think he's done a great job of doing that. Tom also, I asked him, what is success, Tom, to you? Where do you stop? What is it? And he just says, success is having time to do what you want. So we talked a lot about that is success. Many times we want to be successful. We want to build something great. We want to be whatever, but we don't even know what that is. We just go and we spend our time and we devote our life to something, but we haven't identified it. And we need to stop and say, this is success, and write it out. Success is, like the Tom, having time to do what he wants. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, and he said, I can go to the games with my kids. I can take my wife out, those things. Okay, so then you are successful. Sometimes we build this idea of success, but we don't know we don't identify it. And so we never achieve it. So I love that lesson, definitely. And that's also in the book, E-Myth. Look at the end. What does the end look like? And get it in your head and then go for it. Just a couple more here. My interview with Travis Wilcox from Heber Hatchets. A couple things. One thing I liked that I really learned from Travis is something he did wrong, and he told that right off the bat. He said, I was too worried about spending money to get the right location. So he got a location in Heber that wasn't as mainstream and on the main street like his other locations that have flourished. And he feels like a lot of that has, been a part of why it hasn't been as successful as his other store locations. So right off the bat, sometimes you can't just, look at a spreadsheet, and you have to sometimes go and be there and feel it out. Is this where my business should be? Does this place have the foot traffic? So I thought that was a good lesson. Early on, Travis, actually his daughter, made a connection with a company called Get Out Games. They were also in the entertainment space, but a totally different venue, and they came together and became partners. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Sometimes we start a company, we look, I got to do this alone. This is my company. I need 100% of the equity. And I'll challenge that. I think sometimes the right strategic partners can make all the difference. The right person selling the business, or again, in somewhat of a similar industry, different space, can make all the difference. So don't be afraid to look around at the people around you, the people out there, and see if there's someone who you could bring value to and they could bring value to you, and maybe make a deal. It doesn't have to be a 50-50 deal. It can be whatever. You can be very creative with business deals. But I think that's a great piece of advice is look around, find people. Travis, he called himself the most, I can't remember what he said, I'm one of the most conservative people you'll ever find, meaning he's not a risk taker. He's not out there crazy. He's not a crazy guy. Travis is, a spreadsheet guy. He is a guy on paper. He wants to see it in business. I don't mean that in all ways, Travis. But he was talking about, how when he makes decisions, there's just a lot of research and data that goes into that. And his company was debt-free coming into the virus, and that's actually what's helped them survive it. So really good practices there as well. And the last thing that I liked about Travis, he talked about, he kept his day job. They went from 0 to, I can't remember, 6 or 7 locations in the first year or two, but he still has a full-time job. So he's hustling throughout the night, building this business that is very successful. They've got hundreds and hundreds of 5-star reviews, but he still has his day job. And I think at a time like this, when entertainment was shut down, he has survived and done well because of that. So love that lesson. Don't quit your job too soon. Take your side hustle, grow your side hustle until it becomes an issue and you can't do it anymore, and then switch over. With my interview with the Great American Food Truck, that was one of my favorites, with Isabel and David Dupes. Sat down in their house. They actually had a whole spread for me. I mean, they had desserts, they had drinks, they had food. I mean, it was nice. What else would you expect from the creators of the Great American Food Truck? But I love their story. There was a lot of creativity in their journey, coming from Venezuela to throughout the U.S. and then ending up here. There's also a lot of adventure and excitement. They've only been here for a couple of years, but I love the way they approach things. They actually were heading to the Tetons to relocate from Florida, and they said, what about the Park City Heber area? So they're very open. They're very, I don't know. They're not just, I feel like they're the kind of people that they can change their situation. They're not stuck, and they're willing to look around and just have fun. And I thought that, I don't know, that really stuck out to me. One of the things that Isabel said when I asked her what's this piece of advice that you have, is you've got to look and be professional. She talked about having her food truck out before it was wrapped, before they had it right. And they did okay, but then the difference between that and their truck looks amazing, and they're doing more trucks. But the difference was she came out and she looked great, very professional. The food was great. And then just that appearance has a big impact on your customers or potential customers. And David talked a lot about, when I asked him what was his big takeaway, it was kind of similar to Travis. He says, keep your day job as long as you can. Keep your day job. So don't quit too early. But my favorite thing about them was just them. I remember at some point in the interview saying something like, I think anybody listening to this is going to love you guys, because you can't not. There was a great chemistry, a great dynamic. They're so totally different. Like when I was sitting down with them, it's like my parents, multicultural family. They just seem so different from each other, but they just complemented each other. You could feel the respect, the love, and the admiration that they have for each other. And that really was one of my biggest takeaways. My interview with Kyle Moody of Moody Blue Express, that was a tough one to sum up, because in all truth, I just wrapped it up a few minutes ago. I'm filming this a little early. But my interview with Kyle, I think some of the things that I really just loved about it is I found out at the very end he's 29 years old, and you listen to his story and you would have think he's lived enough life to be in the 50s. Kyle it was a rough upgrowing. In fact, we had to do some editing on the episode, because when we talked about where he came from in California to Vegas and how he got to Utah, there was some stuff. There was some hard stuff, and I could tell it was poking at him, some stuff that some struggles with his biological father. And he shared a little bit about, a little bit of abuse. He didn't come from the best place. There were good people in his life, but he had a lot of challenges, more than most. And I loved hearing his story, how he walked through that, and then you wouldn't have known that if you know him now, because he is just full of goodness. He's got a lot of light. He wants to help everyone. Everybody knows him. And we started the interview talking about he still has his job at Smith's while he's building his transportation company. But the whole time he's just done such a great job at that job, going the extra mile at a job like Smith's, that people connect with him. People like him. They want to be around him. It's attractive. And so when it was time to launch his business and he got the idea, he used the customers at Smith's as he was doing his job. Not that it took anything away from Smith's. I got to make that clear. I don't want to get him in trouble, because he's the reason people go to Smith's. That's why I go there sometimes. But he would bounce ideas off him. Hey, what do you think about this? Okay. And then he would get his own little research group. And then he'd say, well, I've got a name. What do you think? And throw names out until he finally just came up with this formula that works. Kyle was very open about the struggles, even some of the numbers, the financial situations of the business. But at the end of it, he was so genuine and authentic that I think his journey is so relatable to all of us. I think for anyone who's starting a business at some point, whether you're there now or you've been there in the past, he's in it. He's in the hardest part of it. And I just really believe in what he's doing. And I know if he can push past this, he'll have a lot of success. But he built his business on customer service, relationships, connections, and people. And that's what it should be. And my last interview for the season was with Tim Naval of Ecolon Salt Lake. Now, Tim is one of my best friends and also a partner. And so I got that out right away. I don't want to give anybody special treatment. One of the things that I wanted to do the interview with Tim was, Tim, like Kyle, came from a situation where his father wasn't in the picture too much. Now, Kyle ended up having a stepdad and a guy he calls his father. Tim didn't have that. His mom raised 5 children on their own from a young age. She worked full-time as a teacher back in Jersey, and the kids are all great. All 5 of them are great. She had a lot of support from her church, from her community. But I just love it because at the end of it, we talked to Tim, and if you listen to the interview, when I asked him about what lights him up and his daughter, you could tell his shift. His energy went out the roof. He loves his daughter. And so that was really impactful to me to see a guy that grew up without a father around. And now here he is, fast forward 20, 30 years later, with a daughter of his own and hopefully more kids. But he's so involved in her life. She is the center of his world. And I love seeing that shift, that shift of a legacy shift. So that was really inspirational to me. And the last thing I'll say about Tim is, and he didn't talk about this, but I just know this from working with him for years, is Tim is all about the details. I'll sometimes say, Tim, let's do this, this, and this. And he is the slowest moving guy with big change because he is down in, like, I'm sometimes not down in the details enough. I'm up here going, oh, let's do this, and throwing things out. I don't have to implement them, right? But Tim is like, whoa, slow down. Everything is, he wants to make sure the customer is taken care of, and he wants to have the best lawns out there. So I'll introduce all these changes in fast moving, and he will slow me down and probably ignores me half the time. But I'm glad that he does it because he's protective of his customers. He wants to give the customers a great experience. He is the slowest person to bring on new staff because he just wants to make sure that every technician is doing a great job as much as he cares, and he does. So anyway, thank you guys again for tuning in. This is my Season 2 recap. Again, thank you for your support. I'm looking forward to Season 3. I do have some cool things happening. I'm going to be traveling through the winter, so you're going to hear some really interesting stories. We're going to take it out of Utah. We're going to do some in Jersey and the East Coast. We're going to be down in Florida. Just really excited about that. So I appreciate you guys being with me on this journey, and we'll see you. I guess we'll see. We're going to take a couple weeks off for the holidays, and then we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, guys.